cheese makes the world better for everyone, online as well as in person. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the blind blogger Maxwell Ivy, and this is the Accessibility Advantage, which you can find at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Maxwell Ivy, which is Ivey. And my goal is to advocate for more accessibility for and inclusion of people with disabilities by emphasizing positive benefits instead of focusing on the negatives and fear of compliance. And for my audio description today, I am a 59-year-old Caucasian male, medium length, starting to be long brown hair with a lot of gray and white in it, brown eyes, wearing a burgundy button-down shirt in my kitchen chair in my bedroom, where I record from as always. I am almost totally blind from retinitis pigmentosa or RP. My pronouns are he and him. And today I am blessed to be speaking with somebody who is definitely the expert, Melih Oztalay, who has been in business and marketing for over 4 decades. He has seen lots of the next big things come and go in his career. Today, he is focused on AI, SEO, conversion optimization, and accessibility. He works with companies to build marketing systems that are resilient, user-focused, and work based on how people and machines actually consume information. And he's not out there to chase trends or to tell you to chase trends, but he's here to help people build systems that adapt to the changing times while remembering the people that we are all here to serve. You can find him at smartfindsmarketing.com. So, Melih, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and welcome to the Accessibility Advantage.
Max, great to be on your show. Thanks for having me this morning. That was quite the impressive introduction. Thank you.
uh, I do my best considering this is a low tech show with a low tech budget, but I thank you for the
No
kind
worries, no
words.
worries.
Thank you for the kind words. So, yeah, I did mention that you've been at this over 40 years. Me, I've only been in accessibility for just under 20, so I feel like the baby in the room. But why don't you talk a little bit about your history in business and marketing so people can understand your approach and how it is you feel the way you do about the current next big things of say AI, for example.
I mean, let's go. Let's start in the early days. So, the marketing agency was created back in 1987, and then I started the Internet Group in '94. Um, as a marketing agency, we went 100% digital in 2004. And to be perfectly honest with you, I have not looked back in what now is 25 years of being
Wow.
100% digital. So it's been a long ride. As you can imagine, if there's one thing that I've gained in this time frame is knowledge and experience. And the question is, how do you take that knowledge? How do you take that experience and actually apply it to everything new? I mean, we live in a world that is constantly changing. I don't care if it's technology. I don't care if it's you know cell phones, social media. Take your pick. All these different things that have been going on. Dating back to what started in around 1990. And so you have to figure out how to, as a business owner, you got to figure out, well, how do I take this knowledge? How do I take this experience and do something with it? So um, here we are now, so many years later. It's 2026, and the world has changed a lot since AI came to the market about, roughly what, 3.5 years ago ish, give or take. And it is changing business, it's changing marketing, it's changing society quite a bit. I mean, pretty mind boggling what AI is doing. But before we get into that, just real quickly, we're a marketing agency out of the Detroit metro area. We're a 360 marketing agency. There's very little we don't do. Um, what we don't do is we don't do mobile apps. Outside of that, outside of that, anything marketing, branding, advertising, newsletters, I don't know, take your pick. We're well into those types of things. Website development, and website performance management, which I think is more important than anything else nowadays. And the idea since 2022 is how do you tack on AI to each of these modules into this ecosystem of marketing nowadays? And that's kind of what we've been building on over the last 3 years now is finding all the AI tools and figuring out how to make them work. As it comes to accessibility, I think AI is going to be phenomenal. I think it's going to be more helpful. I think it can speed up accessibility, and make it more available, wider in terms of capabilities. That we're not waiting around for somebody to come up with something. I mean, literally, AI will be able to make that all happen.
Right. So when you talk about AI as far as the potential, I can agree that the potential is there as far as accessibility, or even just as far as user experiences. However, at least for now, my personal experience with AI is a lot of the AI based tools are not fully accessible to screen reader users, especially, and to some other adaptive tech users. And then the part that really concerns me is people just haven't started building in systems to test the content output from these um, AI apps, programs, whatever you want to call it. There aren't systems in place yet to test the outcome for accessibility. Those are my two concerns, at least in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can safely say that it's coming. If it's not at the level that we're expecting at the moment, it's coming. There's so much is moving so quickly, especially during 2025. I mean, a number of AI platforms just went boom. I don't care if it was lead generation or if it was developing presentations to just the basics on your mobile devices. It was just crazy what was going on last year.
Yeah, there are a lot of new platforms. There are a lot of new products out there that are using AI models to speed up the development of their apps. It just feels like, at least in the short term, there's not as much inclusion as I would like. But as you say, hopefully we will get there.
Yeah.
Uh, so far, AI seems to be most helpful to me in small pieces of bigger platforms.
Yeah, that's probably a good direction at the moment, or where things stand at the moment. What if I let me just give some examples on what real world examples of what we do with AI right now. So one of the things is on your website. The question is, how do you convert more visitors to become leads or sell? And we developed what we call a conversion rate optimization process. And the CRO program basically is using artificial intelligence that we add to the website, using heat maps, using ABCD testing on targeted pages, using all the analytics that's available to us while we're engaged in that process. What we're able to do in about 4 months is increase the leads that a website generates by roughly about 200%. What's also interesting, and we have case studies on these things too, is that we're able to reduce the amount of time it takes for a visitor to become a lead. And granted, I'm talking a little bit more about B2B at the moment. And these programs work best in the B2B world. Why? Because it's very limited in terms of the products and services that are being offered. Whereas if you were to have a retail website and you have, I'm just throwing out a number here, 1,000 SKUs of different types of products, that process is a little bit different. A lot of people don't necessarily return in those cases. They come, they check it out, find the price, and they leave. Um, in the B2B world, people are coming to the website multiple times before they make a decision. And so the AI tool, for example, creates a journey funnel for each visitor. And that journey funnel essentially is very passive at the top of the funnel, meaning that's the first time that visitor came. But as the AI identifies the pages, the products, how long they stay, the frequency between visits, et cetera, that person becomes more, goes further down that funnel, meaning at the bottom of the funnel is the decision phase. And the AI tool, which creates a call to action, is doing it actively. So, and what I mean by that is right now, a lot of web pages have little buttons, right? We're expecting somebody to click on it because that's the call to action we want. In the AI world, the AI doesn't care where that person is on the website. It will feed a call to action to that person based on where they are in that funnel. And what I mean by that is at the top of the funnel, it's passive. At the bottom of the funnel, it gets a little bit more aggressive. In other words, if you haven't decided to contact us by now, you've got a problem. And so, kind of hitting somebody upside the head with a two by four that says, okay, you need to talk to us. But that's one example of how AI is helping businesses grow. It is a tedious process. It's very detailed because you're constantly changing colors and buttons and layouts, not on the entire website, but on targeted pages. And you're also, gaining knowledge with the AI to figure out how we're going to use and how we're going to make the website more effective. This type of program with AI, honestly, that's what you want to start with before you spend advertising dollars. Make your website more effective and then spend the dollars to, or what I would call demand generation.
Right. Well,
This is the way to go.
right. Well, a few years ago, when I was focused more on helping people get on podcasts, somebody would say, "Could you get me on the, Good Morning America or something like that?"
Right.
And the answer from the really smart experts was always, "Is your website and business ready for that type of an appearance?" So you basically just said the
Right.
same thing about marketing. Is your website ready for traffic? If it isn't really ready to convert the traffic it's going to get, then this is not the point where you want to be investing in marketing or
Yep.
marketing activities. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's different now compared to, and I'm just throwing out a number here, let's say 5 or 10 years ago. Now we have improved tools to be able to gain knowledge and make decisions based on facts. We didn't necessarily have the tools that we have today to be able to make that website more effective. A lot of the tools, don't get me wrong, the tools that were on the market, let's say 10 years ago, were great. They were good for their time, but they were short on really what we needed. And so now we've moved into an entirely different phase. And with AI, we're able to make this happen. We're also able to get a website improved rankings with the search engines, the SEO world, or what I say, the search engine optimization that went to the answer engine optimization that went to the generative engine optimization. And so we've been through SEO to AEO to GEO, right? And so the GEO world is really about how do you make your website effective, not just to rank on the search engines, but how do you make it effective so that your website's being recommended in the AI bot, in the AI searches, um, for whatever the search is that's might be relevant to your business. And the process, interesting enough, that Google required was always there. It's called schema, but the AI world has additional information that it wants in your schema code for each page of your website. And so the way, for the audience that's listening and viewing this show right now, my suggestion, and this is the simple way to do this, go to ChatGPT, or if you use Claude or Gemini or Copilot, whichever one you want, ask them to um, give you a list of companies it would recommend for the service or the products that you provide. Now, I will guarantee you that 100% of the time, your company is not going to show up on that list. All right. This, your second question to the AI is going to be, why did you not recommend my company? It's going to spit out a laundry list of to-dos. Your job is to go through that to-do list. And you have the AI, the chat GPT, let's say, that's the one I like to use, have chat GPT help you go through that to-do list and manage and make modifications to your website accordingly. And if it's not you, then your web developer, your technical person that can help you work through that. Um, that being said, that's one thing to do while you're there. Now, in your to-do list, I guarantee you one of the items is going to be to add the schema/JSON script to each page of your website. And that script varies from page to page to page, purely because you have different information on each page. Again, same thing over here. Use ChatGPT and say, provide me the schema JSON code for my homepage. And it will give you exactly what you need to copy, paste it right into your homepage as HTML. You're good to go. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. But for those of us using older tools or who don't have people doing this stuff for us, it's just another thing like, crap, how am I going to do that? So, but it's
Right.
a it's good advice. I'm sure lots of my audience does have a web person or is not using adaptive technology, so they will be much easier to do that. That almost sounds like something that would be easier for me if I were still coding my website as opposed to using WordPress. So
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, listen, I can tell you our agency, when we develop websites, we develop in WordPress. And there are enough plugins out there to help you work through this already. Not to mention add additional elements for what I call website performance. But this is the world that we live in now. We're no longer just doing basic SEO, and we've graduated from the AEO world already, and now we're in the GEO world. And the number of people using AI to find businesses, to find services and products has grown exponentially in the last year. So this idea of being able to make sure that the AI world knows about you, for example, in WordPress, you can use Yoast. Yoast is a great SEO tool. It's the one that I recommend for everybody. Um, that can help facilitate what you need for the AI world. It's not quite to the level that I think it should be, but this is where you can use ChatGPT to help you out.
all right, so we're talking about using AI to make the websites convert more. So,
Mhm.
how do we ensure that while we're doing that, we aren't eliminating people who are using adaptive technology, whether they have a disability or not?
Yeah, and from an accessibility standpoint, I can tell you that the process is an add-on. What you do um, for your website's performance is not going to impede what you need to implement for accessibility. They're they're very different sections of what we do. So, for example, uh, my point is, when you look at this from a business lens, accessibility is not a niche topic. It's about the customer's experience. It's about market expansion or the brand trust. We're talking about uh, you know accessibility is just customer experience done completely. In other words, we're not leaving anything out. And this is where I think that we have to keep in mind that, especially in the WordPress world, there are plugins nowadays that help facilitate accessibility. So it's not like you have to code everything from scratch anymore. And there's AI tools for accessibility. So from that standpoint, what I'm saying in terms of answering your question, there are two separate elements in terms of how we position the website and how we give the user experience within the website once they arrive. And one does not cause a problem with the other.
Right. I've talked to several people who will say that basically when you're creating a good user experience, you're generally improving accessibility and vice
By
versa.
default, I would agree. No doubt. I would agree 100%. If we take, and you and I were talking about this before the show started, but if we take a look at what the EU has done now the EU started off with the GDPR world several years back and made that a requirement relative to privacy. Um, and interesting enough, in the United States, every company adapted that very quickly. Now, granted, adapting that was not that difficult. They, again, in the WordPress world, they found a GDPR plugin, put it in, and when somebody came to the website, it asked the appropriate question, and by default, you were able to meet the requirements of GDPR. But as of June last year, the EU implemented the European Accessibility Act. It went into effect last June, and there's been a lot of questions on my mind how much that's going to impact companies in the United States. Now, it hasn't been a year yet as far as the EAA, but it is having an impact. There are requirements for all businesses to adjust to this. Um, and essentially, you've just accelerated a trend that was already happening. It was going in slow motion, but the EAA is helping to move that along very, very quickly.
Right. Well, under the EAA, one of the things they did was they gave a timeline for adoption based on whether your business had been in business or whether you were a brand new business. And the requirements are more immediate for a brand new business because the assumption under the law is
Right.
that if you don't have a bunch of stuff to remediate, then you should be able to get up to speed quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I would agree. And no question that new companies, new websites are, going right into that. Older companies, I think that is still a catch-up world, unfortunately. I mean, roughly speaking, if we take a look at the numbers in recent reports, I mean, I stay up on a variety of topics on the internet, but they're saying about 25% of the companies were fully prepared at this point. And that's not, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, it's been 7, 8, 9 months. 25% is not bad. But in Europe, we're basically saying that this is moving along. It's moving along well.
I find the number a little hard to believe
Okay.
because uh, I mean, I've seen the slow progression, if not lack of progression, of accessibility in general. And because of how much new content gets added to the web every day, the number hasn't really changed a lot over the last few years. It's still less than the general
Right.
agreement is it's still less than 5%. Maybe it's 6 now, but I mean, I find it hard to believe that 25% of companies in Europe are prepared to meet the law at this point. As
Well, the way that this law is set up, the next step is the governments are going to start fining companies. And that's going to turn into a big problem for a lot of companies. In other words, then the fines are going to be tied to revenues. So just because it's not going to be a one flat fee fits all. Your fine is based on your revenue level, and the next step in this whole process is the enforcement, and it's going to be starting soon. So by the I don't know if they're going to be able to reach 100% in Europe by the time they get to June, July this year. But once the fines start, I expect that this is going to move along much, much faster.
Right. However, if you look at the way the fines are structured, um, there are going to be a lot of small and medium sized companies that are going to make the same decision over there that many of them make over here, which uh, is given the unlikely event that I will get punished, I am not going to make major investments in
I know
accessibility.
exactly. I agree.
And,
Right, and that um, that and for that reason, a lot of companies are pushing it out as far as they can. But the moment they get that letter from the government, it's going to change. How quickly they start to adapt.
right. I'll be interested to see how it happens because we're almost a year out from United Airlines paying some real money
Hmm.
for an inaccessible booking process. And my anecdotal experience and talking to people who are more knowledgeable about it than I am is that it really hasn't been the fear inducing thing that a lot of people thought it would be. It was like if you would figure if a company as big as United gets nailed for seven figures,
Right.
that would throw a lot of fear of whatever into the online world, but it just really hasn't. Um,
No, and I think in the US, it's like um, you'd have to take a look at that situation and dig into the legal side as far as why or how they lost. And as in the US with with lawsuits and so on and so forth, it could be really niche. It could be very specific to a single situation, which doesn't broadly apply to everybody. And that is what I mean. Since I did not dig into the details of that, but I'm guessing that is why we that fear did not take shape within the United States.
right, but this kind of gets to the whole point of my podcast, which is that
Hmm.
the regulations, the EAA, it sounds good, and I have some hope that it will improve things over there, and maybe by the companies not wanting to lose European customers that will over here. But
Hmm.
the real thing we have to do is we have to convince business owners that accessibility as part of user experience is in their best interest. So, have you seen any change among your own clients as far as accessibility, or do you do it in a way where they generally don't even notice the process?
Um, I'm going to answer that question in two parts. Number one is the clients don't seem to take notice. And I've come across some clients where it was an assumption that we would be doing it, like especially if we're developing the website and managing the website. And sometimes if we're taking over a website, there's an expectation that we're just going to do it.
Right.
Um, and as you can imagine, it's easier to incorporate while building a new website versus if we're taking over a website that's already been out there, trying to implement the necessary tools can be very, very difficult. Um, and so, from that standpoint, your question is very interesting in that businesses aren't thinking about it. It's not top of mind. Um, on the flip side coin, yes, our job is to make sure that the client websites are meeting, every uh, possibility on accessibility. I mean, the ADA on its own tends to cover a lot of things broadly, albeit that it's still a little bit short on what is required, um, uh, you know, for businesses. Ultimately, legal obligations haven't changed much in that direction. But the new government's digital rules, I think, will make changes quite a bit. The what was it, the
It's
CAG,
CAG,
right?
yes.
G, right? The new version, two
I think we're
point
up to
two or
2.2 now, aren't we?
two, right? Right, we're up to 2.2. And so a lot of those deadlines are coming up here in the next year. And so these are very real, and I think they're going to slowly make impact on businesses. It's just a matter of time. Like I said, the good news is there are so many tools out there with AI, um, that can help to improve and speed up this process. It's just a matter of somebody saying, making the conscious choice, of moving forward. Like, I've always said, the difference between utopia and reality is choice. And so, in this particular scenario, if we say that we want everybody to be have accessibility implemented, it's literally a choice on an individual business to say, yes, I'm going to do this.
Right. So you touched on something there that I really think we ought to be talking about more. You said that the client assumes or expects that their providers like you are taking care of accessibility. And
Right.
I run across a lot of websites using third party pieces, and I will reach out and tell them that this piece they're using as part of what they're doing is not accessible, and most of them will tell me they just assumed that the third party company they were hiring was taking care of that. So what would you say to companies that are assuming this? I'm assuming that's a
I
dangerous way to
we've
look
we've
at the
already
world, and how
yeah.
do you make sure?
I we've had the conversation with clients, like, and it'll be one of those things where, like in our case, we have weekly meetings with our clients, right? And so something pops up, some subject pops up that's wrapped around, accessibility one way or the other, and we find out that that an assumption was made, and of course we have to have that conversation, because the reality is, while tools are out there to implement into websites to make them accessible, for to meet accessibility requirements, it's not always an easy process, especially with an existing website. All of a sudden you have to recode everything, and you're adding pieces, to facilitate this, and because of that, there's we find out that there was um, an assumption that's being made that we would do this. But the answer is that we have to talk to each client separately about this and find out exactly what is it that they're thinking. And so, my suggestion is they need to take a look at tools like this. We do that as well. Accessibility checker or Wave, or things like Lighthouse, which is built into Chrome. These are some possibilities on what to do in terms of identifying, what a page is missing, for example. The idea is to scan the pages for WCAG issues. What are and or show where things need to be fixed. But there's something else that's interesting. Companies will decide to do the bare minimum, which is unfortunate. It's sad, but whatever it meets the bare minimum requirements, they're willing to do that. And I think that is, like I said, that's a sad situation, unfortunately.
Right. Well, that's generally what happens when we depend on fear-based regulation to
Yeah.
accomplish anything in the world.
Yep.
As
Exactly.
the majority. But when I was asking the question, I was thinking about things like templates, like
Yeah.
apps people are using to create content as part of their website. I've run into issues with third-party calendars, with forms builders, with website templates that made it easier for somebody to build their website, but the template itself was not designed to help create accessible content.
Correct. Yep.
And so
I
that's
agree.
kind of what I was trying to get at is these things that many businesses, probably more so the small and medium businesses, are using to make their lives easier, and assuming that accessibility is being built in. And it sounds like what you're saying is each company and each provider needs to be using these tools that are available, like Website Checker from WordPress, White House, and Waves, on a regular basis to see what the tools they're using is creating.
Yep. But here's the other thing. You mentioned themes, and let me just add to that real quickly. Um, a lot of themes are not set up automatically to be fully accessible, quote unquote, out of the box. And so, and so what we run into is our themes that don't even consider it whatsoever. And then on the other hand, you've got themes that are saying that they are um, uh, that they are built for accessibility, but you need to do the rest of the work. So, for example, we like to use the theme called Aveda. Aveda is broadly used in WordPress websites. It's been out there for a very long time. The good news is the company that runs that operation for that theme, they've never changed what they do. Where so many other theme providers keep changing things out, and then they'll drop a theme, and you have no way of moving forward, so to speak. But Aveda is a good one, and it's built following accessibility and accessibility HTML practices. It's designed to meet WCAG guidelines, and it's built with accessibility in mind. And so now that's the broad stroke of it, okay? But as you can imagine, it's built with accessibility in mind, kind of takes you to the next step, which is you still need to implement what's necessary to actually just have that functionality within the website.
Right, right. Well, I understand that there are a lot of tools in WordPress that can help you build accessible websites. My current experience with WordPress is that I'm finding the back end less and less accessible over time to where
I
and I,
understand.
yeah, and I'm not the only one because I have many friends, especially those using screen readers, who are running older versions of themes that are exploring other options like Drupal, for example, or Umbraco. And so, that's another issue of a website. If you're building a site for somebody that's providing services like that, a lot of times the front end will be accessible and the back end won't.
Correct. Yeah. And in your case, you're referring to WP admin when you're in WordPress. And yeah, that's, you would think WordPress would already have that figured out by now.
Well, in my opinion, they've done a lot of great stuff to improve accessibility and to encourage it on their platform. However, over the last 7 years, they've had two major changes with Gutenberg and now the full site editors.
Yep. Hmm.
And so, while there are things to help the the less techie users like myself continue to have an enjoyable experience on the back
Right.
end, it's just not what it was before. And
Sure. Completely understand.
so, all right. So, when it comes to a business owner who, what I know you talked a lot about AI, but what are for a business owner maybe that is not ready to get into the nuts and bolts of how they do it, what would you say to them as far as their approach to building their website and creating their content to um, to have a good user experience and also hopefully to have an accessible experience?
Yeah. And I think the one of I wrote an article for Cranes Detroit several years ago, and I will tell you that article still holds today. um, and in that article I made the case for WordPress for businesses. And what drives me kind of up a wall is when you have so many website development firms. In other words, they're not marketing agency, they design and build websites. That's all fine and dandy, but they tend to build them with proprietary platforms. And in some cases, they even take WordPress and make it proprietary, which is crazy. And so the first thing I would suggest is check to see what the platform is that the website's going to be built in. I would highly recommend that any business focus their attention on WordPress. Why? It is the most widely used platform for websites worldwide, not just nationwide, worldwide. And what the value over here is twofold. Number one is WordPress was originally designed and built for communications, outbound communications. And so its ability to communicate with the rest of the world tends to be far ahead of some of the other platforms in the marketplace. The second thing is, if your web developer falls off the face of this earth, guess what? You can find anybody, anywhere to help you with your WordPress website. You don't need to go chase somebody down. But if you're on a proprietary platform, guess what? The only people that know how to use it or to manage it are the people that built it. And the chances are that you're going to find somebody for that specific situation is very difficult. So my first suggestion is be sure that you're not getting yourself built, your website built into a proprietary platform. That would be step number one. Beyond that, it really comes down, especially if you're using WordPress. I mentioned earlier, use the Aveda theme. It's very functional, versatile, broad, has all kinds of capabilities, including for accessibility. And so it's already designed in that space. WordPress is moving more in that direction. And so from that standpoint, if you have the right platform, if you have the right theme, then you can move this along, not just for your business, but then to meet the accessibility requirements that are out there.
All right. Well, that sounds like a great place for us to finish, because that sounds like a starting place most people can wrap their heads around.
I agree.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing some of your decades of knowledge and experience with my audience. Thank you so much
Great
for
to
that.
be on the show, Max.
All righty. I appreciate it. And if you'll give me a couple minutes to do my outro. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me and my guest on the Accessibility Advantage. I know you have lots of demands on your time and not a lot of it to give away. So I appreciate that you've decided to invest some of it with us. And I hope you did learn something that will help you grow your business, or that will help your existing business better understand how to embrace accessibility. If you want to reach out to Melih, you want to go to smartfindsmarketing.com and check him out over there. If you're looking for assistance to make sure that your organization's online presence is accessible, then please do check me out on my website, theaccessibilityadvantage.com, or find me on LinkedIn as Maxwell Ivy. I'll have all the links to where y'all can find Melih in the description of the episode. And so until next time, please do take care out there. Disabled people, we tell our friends and share to our social sites. Now don't think about how hard it is. Just focus on those
item chooser
dollar
menu. One hot fit 2
signs.
items and stream button and stream
'Cause
button. End the stream and 5 more items. Outro set not end stream.